We have another very special guest for you today on this, the nation's birthday. You know him, you love him. He's a friend of the show, the king of podcasts, one of the original podcasters over 20 years. George has been doing his podcasts and bringing it to the American people, and he has 4 going on now. He has the Cannabis Podcast, the Debauchery Podcast, Podcasters Row, Broadcasters Podcast. Welcome to the show. I cannot keep up with you. I even forgot the debauchery, and what was it? What's the total name?
Oh, depraved and debauchers, yes.
Depraved. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to screw that one up. But yeah, you are one of the original podcasters. For those of you who are not familiar with your appearances here on 1210 WPHT, a lot of people got into it later, but you're 20 plus years on, having just celebrated a big anniversary for the wrestling podcast that you do. So the King of Podcasts, you can find it www.kingofpodcast.com and on X at King of Podcasts. It's right? Is it at King of Podcasts or at KOP? I always forget.
At King of Podcasts. But I'll tell you, one of the anniversaries that's very notable from last Thursday was podcasting was made available on iTunes for the very first time 20 years ago last week.
Wow. So you have 20 years. Our previous guest, Jim Hoft from the Gateway Pundit, is celebrating 20 years. The nation is having its birthday. It's a good day. It's a good day. Hey, we're going to lighten things up as we go into the weekend because, as I liked, he goes to movies, so I don't have to. And then George tells me, even when we talk on the phone, about movies were good or movies are bad, and he knows I just hate everything, so I'm not going to find anything worthwhile in there. But we're going to get to the movies. Yeah. But before we get there, I had one quick thing that popped into my head, George, since we last communicated a few hours ago. And the Diddy trial, I don't want to get too deep in the weeds in it. I don't really care. But I want to say, you know how I feel about nepotism and cronyism, because I've lost out on a bunch of jobs to nepotism and cronyism, is the reason the Department of Justice lost that is because the lawyer who had it, James Comey's daughter, Maureen Comey, she had no business presenting that case. And I'll bet you, due to cronyism, due to nepotism, a more qualified prosecutor was probably passed over because James Comey pulled some strings so his daughter can get major headlines and push her career forward by putting this guy in jail for the rest of his life. And obviously, karma being what it is, she wasn't qualified. She's like the Bronny James of lawyers, or what's his name, Arch Manning of lawyers, and just not qualified, so it blew up in their face. What do you think?
Well, see, part of it is you can say that about having another lawyer, Alexander, tell me, but the other thing is you had the case in New York. A federal case, you didn't have to put it in New York. You could put it in Miami where he was actually staying. You could have done it somewhere else, because in New York, I just feel like in wherever the case can be done, this is a billionaire. If he's got to go ahead and pay anybody off, if he's got to go ahead and do any kind of work to get to the judge, to get to the jury, and be able to go and clear his name or get the least of charges possible, because right now, I mean, I saw what's being said about it. I mean, look, the lesser of the charges where he was made guilty of, he could go ahead and, even if they got him in jail waiting for the sentencing, it doesn't matter. He's going to go and walk free. And as far, I mean, if they got him for a couple of little things, that's fine. But the thing that he was never going to get racketeering, and there's just other areas that he's not going to get into. The only thing that you all got from all this is in the court of public opinion. Now he's an outcast, and there's no recovering from that public persona ever again.
And the world knows something he's been trying to hide for 30 years is the world knows he's gay. Personally, I don't have a problem with it, but evidently he did, because he's been trying to hide it for a very long time. As 50 Cent called him, now he's the gay, he beat the big rap, he's the gay John Gotti, which I found very funny.
Well, I mean, I guess bisexual, because, I mean, he did have sex with Cassie while beating her in the same process, I guess.
Yeah, but, you know, one thing that troubles me about this is we heard so many stories about A-list celebrities on video watching people be raped, and so much people being locked in rooms and raped and drugged. And was all of those media reports wrong? You know, something's not passing the smell test here, George.
I know, but Lou, the thing is, I didn't care about the trial. I didn't want to pay attention to it. All I know is that when we went back to the beginning, when we had, what is it, the FBI, I guess it was, that went and raided his home in Miami and his other home, I think it was New York.
No, LA. It was Los Angeles.
Oh, right. Los Angeles and Miami. And the thing was, the evidence they had, and all they had was the one beating video of everything else. Where's the other evidence? Because all the testimony, I could care less. If you want to nail Diddy to the charges, you have to have the ledgers, you have to have the videos, you have to have phone calls. There's got to be other things out there. It was phone call, I guess they had in there, but that's the only changeable evidence matters to the jury. Or
you know what it is, George? He's Epstein 2.0. I said that to you in a text. He's Epstein 2.0 because who's on all those videos? All those videos that you just cited, who's on them? And that's why we're never going to see them. That's why they presented this weak case. I think when they got all those videos, they started looking through them, and you see.
And for some of those outspoken people that keep asking for the Epstein files, or Diddy, I don't know anyone right now that could go into that Justice Department, FBI, and be able to go ahead and come away from that cesspool there in Washington, D.C. to get the biggest type of names that can be on these videos or in this evidence for any of those things. When it comes to child trafficking, when it comes to sexual assault, you're not going to get those people. There's going to be such a lock, and so many people are going to be that are entrenched into those agencies that will not allow that to happen. So it's not one person that's going to come in there. It's got to be a lot of people that make a change in there, but that's not going to happen. I don't believe it will.
I don't believe it will either, and much to the frustration of me, you, our previous guests, and many people out there. So it's anyway, on to the summer blockbusters. We're halfway through the year. Movies this year, not so much the summer, but movies so far this year, the best and the worst movies of 2025. George, I'm not kidding. You and I talk on the phone. You know the last movie I saw. I can't even say because it's so long ago. You go to movies, so I don't have to. What did you see? You just told me 62 movies last year, right?
Correct. And I think I've seen almost 30 this year so far.
And I love the movie house experience. The movie house experience that I experienced as a little boy growing up in the Bronx is kind of gone, but it's still cool. It's just different. You know, you have the big luxury chairs, the lounge chairs, and the screens are smaller, but the sound systems are better. So I still like, there used to be a promo in our local movie theater. It used to say, escape to the movies. And that's what I thought it was, because the lights go out, and now there's too many. It's like a half hour of commercials and trailers. I like the trailers, but too many commercials. But it used to be escape to the movies. When the lights went out, nothing else mattered. So, George, I have to ask you about Brad Pitt's new movie, F1, because, as you know, I live in New Smyrna Beach. All the 1210 WPHT listeners know that. And a lot of that, not a lot of it, a portion of it was filmed right here in New Smyrna Beach, and a lot of it was filmed just a few miles up the road at Daytona Speedway on International Speedway Boulevard there. So it was Brad Pitt mania in my small town for quite some time. It said free teeth cleaning for Brad Pitt, free yoga for Brad Pitt, free coffee for Brad Pitt. It was like, I couldn't get a coffee in town, George, if I was willing to pay for it, but Brad Pitt could get free coffee. So did you see F1?
F1? Yes, I did. I will say this. Now, you talk about the 30 minutes of commercials. I actually timed it this time because they had added. It wasn't so much. It was around 25 minutes for the last year or so before the movie starts. It was literally 30 minutes this time around. So I want to say it was about 6 or 7 trailers and a commercial between, not to mention all the concession products that they have that also have to get their own ads in there as well. It's a lot. It's $17 now for a single ticket at my theater. And I think if you want to get it on one of the bigger screens, it's like $21. That's a lot. That is a lot of money. Yeah, there's no matinee anymore. No more before 6 o'clock and things like that. And then for the seniors, it's what, $15. Like, it's not much of a difference. That's a big price to pay. I understand it. That's why the subscription for me only works. F1 was very good. You want to watch it, it's worth watching in the theaters because trying to watch that at home is not going to do. When you have those Formula One cars, you get to look inside the cockpit of these cars because the same director of Top Gun Maverick, they did the same thing. You were in the planes, And now you're in these cars and you are in there feeling all the driving in there. And the way it was just set up, it's unlike, I mean, I saw Ford versus Ferrari. I've seen other racing movies. Nothing like this. Days of Thunder couldn't even compare because of the racing that they had in this and how good it looks. It was really compelling. Brad Pitt, still a standout star. The guy, I don't know how he doesn't age. I don't know what he's doing, but he looks great out there. I thought the casting was good. It was a really fun movie, a good storyline as well.
He's just, Brad Pitt's just likable. He's probably playing himself every movie. And this is not I'm not knocking his actor chops, but he's very likable. He seems likable in person in interviews. But it's just, I think a lot of it is he's playing himself. My girlfriend and her friends saw it and they liked it. They really enjoyed it. And they had a different perspective because, George, they went on the tour of the Daytona Speedway, which I didn't go on. George, I never leave the house. That they don't say yeah so quickly, but that's true. But they went. They went when Tina's dad came to town. They all went up to Daytona Speedway and went on that tour, and there was like 6 of them that went in a group, and every one of them highly recommends it. So to the listeners, if you're ever down in the Daytona or New Smyrna Beach, Volusia County area, and you have an opportunity to go to Daytona Speedway and spend a bunch of hours, they bring you right out on the track, George. So
wow.
Being right on that track, which is hard to stand up because it's at like a 30% grade or something like that, and then getting the whole tour of the whole facility, gave her a better perspective for the movie. And she said it was a great movie anyway, even if she didn't go on the tour. But having been able to be on the track, it gave a different perspective and made her enjoy the movie even more. Now, where there was a laundromat scene, because I actually was watching them film that.
Yes.
Was it Javier Bardem? Is that how you say his name?
Yeah, it's when he the owner of the racing team that approaches Sonny Hay, Brad Pitt's character, to come back because they actually raced together years ago.
Right.
And when Javier Bardem's character moves forward, he wants to go ahead and bring him on because he needs anybody to help him out with the racing team because they're dead last. And it's like this worst to first scenario they play out the whole movie.
Well, he's talking with him in the laundromat. That was filmed right here in New Smyrna Beach. And right next door to that laundromat was a restaurant, and I believe they filmed a restaurant scene, a diner type scene, because it was a diner.
Right.
That was filmed right next door. And about 2 months after they filmed that, and they wrapped up and they went wherever else they were filming, that diner burned to the ground. It's now an empty slab. It's just a slab right now. The coin-operated laundromat is still there, and right next door is nothing. It's just a slab because that where they filmed that restaurant scene is now gone. It burned to the ground overnight one day. So, but anyway, so F1 is a thumbs up from you, right? You liked it? You recommend it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. There's no movies to watch this weekend. If surely Jurassic Park is a rebirth that's coming out this weekend. I don't want to watch another reboot of a reboot, so it's not my thing about the dinosaurs. I don't know if it'll do well, but I
read negative reviews about it.
Movies. Well, I wanted to watch. I was thinking, do I want to go back and watch F1 another week later? I'll just hold off on it.
Are you the type who can go to a movie twice? I can't do that. I could barely go once.
I've done it.
You've done it.
I mean, if there's nothing going on the next week because of the subscription, I'll take the chance. I would only do it if I had the subscription, so I'll go back and watch again.
All right, so
that's a handful of times.
What would so it's really weird because it's a holiday weekend, and usually holiday weekends are huge releases for movies, and they released F1 last week, and there's nothing with Jurassic Park, but nothing really, no blockbusters being released on this 4th of July weekend. Isn't that weird?
Well, it's because they're doing the thing where they're kind of like just they're doing a bit of this stretching out, making sure there's no movies that are trying to compete against each other. So while Jurassic Park that finds a spot this week, Superman comes out next week, and then it's like you have other movies that are kind of spread out. Like there's options to watch. There's some big blockbusters now. Mission Impossible still out there. Ballerina still out there. You have movies that are available, and for those that probably don't go to the movies that much, they're not caring too much for the movie fans like me that we want a new movie that's going to be something I'm going to watch every week. It's more for people that are going to just like, will they go to an event movie? Well, there's a lot of event movies now if you wanted to go this 4th of July weekend.
Our very special guest, he's a friend of the show, the King of Podcasts. He hosts the King of Podcasts, home of Wrestling is Real podcast, the Broadcasters Podcast, Depraved and Debaucherous, and Podcasters Row. You can find him at kingofpodcast.com, on X and TikTok, and on LinkedIn as well. George Hamida, we're talking movies. We're halfway through the year. Is there any hope for the movie season moving forward? Because I'm not big into sequels, and I'm not definitely not into reboots. Producer Jim Kelly and I were talking about how, we like the first, Jurassic Park and Raiders of the Lost Ark and things like that. And we even like the second one of Raiders of the Lost Ark. But once you start getting into 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, well, you lose me. But Mission Impossible, I told Jim the 10th one? Was I right?
Yes. I think it was like 8 or 9. That movie.
What was the name of it? I can't remember the name of it. Do you remember? They don't do numbers anymore. They try to come up with names.
Two-parters, but they did.
Wait, I'm sorry. Could you say that again? You faded. Could you fade away? Could you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Oh, Dead Reckoning Part 2.
Oh, so it's a sequel within a sequel?
Well, it's a two-part of a sequel. Yeah.
Oh,
there were 2 movies.
So I like Tom Cruise. I know he gets a bad rap because of the Scientology, and he gets a bad rap because he would like his private life to be private. Boy, what a novel concept. I like Tom Cruise. So is this a thumbs up, or what are we thinking?
Yeah. If you've watched any of those Mission Impossible movies, there's a couple of tropes you always expect. Crazy stunt himself. I was like,
hey, George, let me interrupt you. George, could you move around somewhere? You're breaking up a lot all of a sudden. I don't know why.
Okay. It should be better now?
It seems so. Okay, go on.
It's better for you right now.
There's some things you could expect from Mission Impossible.
Oh, sure. There's certain tropes you can expect. First of all, he's going to do some big, crazy stunt himself. You know that the American government's going to go after him because he's a rogue agent, and they're trying to stop him from helping to save the world. And one of his people in his crew is always going to go ahead and, die in some tragic fashion.
Some horrible way.
It's a setup for it. Absolutely. But it was a 3-hour movie. That first hour, I know they had to set up some things, but I could have lived without that. The last 2 hours, thrill ride. And it was very well done to the end.
Are these movies made in such a way that you had to have seen the previous 7 or 8? Or you can go in there and just say, hey, I want to see Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning, and just go in and see it. Like, I haven't seen any of the Mission Impossible movies, even though I like Tom Cruise. Can I go see this one, or do I have to go see all the others?
No, you can probably get away with watching it because in that first hour, they were calling back and flashing back to so many things to kind of reflect on Ethan Hunt's career as an agent in all these movies. They really kind of just play back for you, kind of giving you a little bit of a refresher course. And, I've watched all those movies, but again, this is over 20 years you've had these movies.
Right.
You can't expect people to remember every little detail, every little thing. So they did a good way of kind of helping you. I mean, if you want to get into it, you could, and they did.
All right, I want to move on. John Wick. My girlfriend Tina loves Keanu Reeves, so she might be biased. I think she would trade me in for Keanu Reeves if he pulled up with his racing team. But Ballerina from the John Wick universe, what is that? I mean, the female John Wick?
Yeah, one of the armistice in the role. John Wick's in the movie a lot, so that character, if you wanted to go see it, John Wick is more than enough in the movie itself. But yeah, it's another similar story to John Wick, where it's this young girl that was kidnapped and then brought into this whole place to then become a fighter and become another John Wick type. And she's trying to go and find vengeance for, her father being killed. And all this goes on. But then what happens is that John Wick's character has to confront Ballerina from finishing her work. So that's where everything comes into play.
Now, I saw the first John Wick movie, not in the theater, but I've seen it at home, not without commercials, and I liked it. I thought it was good. I like Keanu Reeves. He's a very likable guy. He's a good actor. It's not something that's going to prompt me, though, to say, oh, I can't wait for the sequel to come out, but evidently it's a very successful franchise.
Absolutely. Everybody's going to have an affinity for John Wick, the original, because the original story, the origin story there is what really sells for that. And every other movie is going to be just, it's action, action, action all the way through. So not much of a plot. But that's okay because we expect that because we wanted to see John Wick doing everything with guns,
Right.
kicking everybody's butt, when it comes to all the action scenes. And they always kind of add something to it.
Listen, I really like Keanu Reeves. Any of his movies he's in, I'll watch. But does nobody have the heart to tell him that he can't grow a beard? He's got the worst beard ever. It's just ratty looking, that thing. What do you think?
I mean, I get it, but it's like he's aged pretty well. And I'll tell you, what a guy to have a career that he's had. Oh, another.
Well, he had a double franchise, George.
For him.
He had The Matrix, and now he's got John Wick, and he's got a lot of other movies in between. But 2 major franchises, that's very rare.
Yeah, that guy's had an amazing career, and and they always say so much good about him too, because he looks like he's so humble in every interview I see him after the fact, every adjunct, all of it. It just looks like he's really happy.
You never hear a negative story about him. I read one story where he bought the whole crew Harley Davidsons, and it's just he's got no drama behind him. So it's probably because he's never been married.
You have to see any pictures of him. If you've ever seen any pictures with any female lead, any female co-leads, or any other female people, you notice he never wraps his arm around any woman. He's always been extra respectful. He doesn't want to get pinned for anything at all.
Right. And if he shaved that beard, he'd look like he's about 25 years old again. So, but listen, on George, you know me, I like to be negative sometimes, even though this is a happy day. A lot of bad movies out there. You like more, but I'm extremely biased, so we can't go by what I dislike. You're even keel. You're fair. What movies don't you like? And it's got to be a bad movie for you not to like it because, like I said, you give the benefit of the doubt. What don't you like? What movies don't you like?
Well, I sent you my list. You saw I equally like and equally dislike, big time. So, and I could tell you, like, there were certain movies that I saw right off the bat. And I knew when I was going to go in there was going to be a stinker. So The Weeknd, probably arguably as the worst movie of the year. Won't be surprised if they get the Razzie. What a horrible acting performance, okay? The guy's a great musician, okay? His soundtrack is pretty good. He's got good songs in there. But it's him playing himself, basically. And Jenna Ortega is like this, the person's coming in as part of a stalker type of thing to it. And they give you misery meets, I don't know, it's a kind of a misery type of story. It's like, I honestly think The Weeknd said, I want to take parts of misery, I want to take parts of this movie, and I want to incorporate it into this. And the only thing I've gotten that anybody ever talked about it was just the way he talked about Jenna Ortega's character when he tries to kick her out of a hotel room that they share together. And he's like, get the F out. And just the way he acts is so amateur night. It's horrible.
Did he fund the movie? Because that's usually how these. What would you call him? Would you call him a rapper? The Weeknd? For the 1210 WPHT listeners who don't know, when George is referring to The Weeknd, that's the guy's stage name. What is he? A rapper? Would you say?
He's a singer. Well, he did a few years ago. He did the Super Bowl halftime show. That guy sold millions upon millions of albums, and he's a very big artist. I mean, listen, he does very well for himself. He's made a lot of money.
No, I know in the music world he's huge, but he's not exactly a household name outside of that world.
I mean, he's done some cameo appearances in other movies where he's been the singer, but nothing like this. For him to go ahead and carry a movie, and you can bring Jenna Ortega, you can bring Barry Keoghan, or 2 young, upstanding, good actors and actresses. But I'll tell you, there's nothing that was going to save this movie. It was just, it was so horrible. But it's almost the only thing I can tell you that was just as bad was whoever in Hollywood thought it was a good idea to go and say, okay, they're doing a pitch and they're saying, what if we made Bridesmaids, but we combine it with Die Hard? So Rebel Wilson is like a John McClane character stating a wedding party from mercenaries coming in to grab this rich couple's gold because he's the maid of honor.
Wait, and this is the movie entitled Bride Hard.
Bride Hard.
Now,
horrible.
What you just described to me, who green-lighted that, as they say in Hollywood? That if someone came into me and said what you just said about the save whatever, I was like, no, I'm not spending $10 million making that. Actually, Rebel Wilson probably had $10 million.
Well, you know what it is? There was a movie Pitch Perfect that got a couple of sequels after that, and Rebel Wilson and Anna Camp were part of that movie, I'm pretty sure. And
Yeah, yeah,
it's so that I
but that
think
was
about it from other
different. But
people
that
from
was
that
different.
same
That was
series.
Pitch Perfect was a different movie. Anna Kendrick was in that, and a few other familiar faces. Pretty girls singing, a little drama.
Yeah.
But what was it? Saving the Wedding Party? What was this? The Bride? Could you say that again? I can't even.
So Rebel Wilson is like this CIA agent that was there as a maid of honor. There's a whole story behind it, but without getting up too much, what she does is she single-handedly takes down a group of mercenaries that are trying to steal gold from this rich family of her, of who the bride is marrying into this rich family, and that's the whole story behind it.
Talking about the best and worst movies of 2025 so far. George, before we get back into it, Michael Madsen passing away suddenly, cardiac arrest, age 67. That's one of those ones where you click on, you click on your phone and you look at the headline and you're like, wow, I didn't see that one coming. That was a sad surprise, right?
I don't know about that. That guy looks like he had quite a time of a lot of drinking, a lot of maybe some drug taking. Who knows? That guy probably had a rough life, and if this ticker goes, I wouldn't be surprised. You can just kind of tell that guy doesn't necessarily take care of himself.
But he always looks like he just came out of the bar. I mean, he's looked like that since his 20s.
No, I know, but that's whatever. A lot of people like that. Look, I'm surprised Gary Busey's still around. Okay, it's that kind of grizzled kind of feel to it. I want to ask you this, Lou. So you know how we get a little bit fatigued about certain sequels and movies that keep coming back?
Right.
Why is it we don't feel the same way about James Bond? 60 years later, Amazon and MGM are going to start building up another Bond. They're already talking about who's going to be the next Bond, who's the next Bond girl. Why is it we're never tired of that?
That's a great question, and it's funny you should mention that, because just last week I was reading that they're talking about Timothée Chalamet being Bond, and I'm like,
no,
well, yeah, his name is on the short list.
He's not British. He can't be. It's got to be a British actor.
Listen, it's got to be someone who looks like they're growing up. Nothing against Timothée Chalamet. I honestly have nothing against the guy. I haven't seen any of his movies. I hear the Dylan movie is good, but he could be James Bond's son. I know he's 30 years old, but he looks like he's 17. He can't be James Bond. God bless him, he looks like he's 17. I wish I looked like I was 17. But he can't be James Bond. He doesn't. This is going to sound stupid, but he's not manly enough. He's not debonair. He's good looking. He's cute, but he's banging Kylie Jenner. There must be something there, but he's not Bond. You know what I mean?
I feel like that kid's going to be like the next Leo DiCaprio, honestly, the way his career's going. He's good. Don't get me wrong, but I think there's other people that are out there. Aaron Taylor Johnson, who was Cracking the Hunter. He was in Money Chain. He's been out a bunch of other movies. I think that's the guy that I'd like to see next as Bond, because that guy just has the chops. And if I had to pick a Bond girl, the character in Shogun, and I forget her name now, but Ansa Wyatt's her name, but she's like in regular Ricky Sugarland in Shogun, there's the love interest it's been a couple, like jumped over a year watching that movie, that series. But the thing is, I like her to be the next Bond girl, and Aaron Taylor Johnson to be the next Bond.
Now, wait, when you say Chalamet, you think he might be the next DiCaprio, you don't mean that in a positive way.
No, I say it in a positive way. I think that guy's going to get as much work as he can. I think he's the leading guy. I think he's doing really well for himself, where he can put it. Listen, he led Dune. He had that Dylan movie to his credit now, and He didn't walk out. Like they're giving him starring roles. His movies make money.
Well, he's definitely got a great agent, but I thought you meant because DiCaprio, although he won the Oscar for that one where he was out in the wilderness. I forget what it was called.
The Revenant. That was good. The Revenant was very good. Revenant.
Aside from the fame that came from Titanic, that was obviously a great marketing deal they had going there, and he was young and he's handsome and all of that kind of stuff. Jack Dawson and what you have, but between Titanic and him winning the Oscar, there really wasn't much. What was The Beach? There was a few movies, but there really wasn't really much to hang your hat on. Chalamet talks about, I want to be one of the great ones. I love the ambition. I love the confidence in that. I think, like you said, he'll have a successful career, but is he going to be one of the great ones?
For what we
Um,
have, there are some good actors we have now that are moving the way forward. Glenn Powell, he was in Top Gun Maverick. He's going to be in the new version of The Running Man. That looks pretty good, and I think that he's starting to find his way. And it was also the guy in Twisters, the new Twisters movie. He's another guy who can also lead up. But we're going to have some leading guys again, but they didn't have anybody kind of set up to who would fall from the bullpen to go ahead and lead movies once again. They don't have anybody right now. They kind of missed out on that. And I think we're starting to get some folks that are finally making their way up to possibly become something more. We need leading men. Tom Cruise is not going to be around for us.
No, he's 62 years old or something like that. I mean, that's young for today. But yeah, he's not 32 anymore, and he knows that. But I just don't get it. I don't see it. But listen, I hope Charlemagne has a great career, but he definitely has a great agent because he's working consistently, and like you said, his movies make money. All right, now speaking of someone who's getting a little older but is very likable, and he's a nepo baby, Nicholas Coppola, a.k.a. Nick Cage. Was he the nephew of Francis Ford Coppola, right? He's basically I like Nicolas Cage, but he plays himself in movies too, same character all the time, but he's just making movies now too because he almost went bankrupt. Isn't he just trying to grab as much work as he can because he needs the money?
Well, besides that, it's just like other actors are just out there. They have to keep working. And sometimes you're going to just take movies that are just there because they're available. You're going to get the script, and it's not going to be a good one, but you got to do some of the bad ones to get a good one. And that's where Nicolas Cage is right now because he did Renfield. I forget there was other movie he did was like an old person as like some action person. And this Surfer movie, I get what they're trying to do with it. It was long, it was boring, and I didn't care for the guy. There was no redeeming quality to his character. It's like I didn't care what happened to him, but he went through all this stuff to try to get a surfboard back of all these things that he's doing. It's a very simple.
Is that really? Come on, is that
very,
really? Is that really the movie? Crap. He's trying to get a surfboard back.
Yeah, and then he's trying to go in. He's in Australia, and he's trying to get a house on the beach being built. He's going through divorce. He's just and there's all this thing about he's stuck in a parking lot of a beach, and he can't leave because his car got stuck. And then he's got these surfer guys that are like, it's something out of the Warriors. I feel like it's like, okay, these two are all terrorizing him, and I don't know. It was just
it sounds pathetic. Oh, listen, but the thing is this: Nicolas Cage. Like I said, I like Nicolas Cage. I love that movie he was in. What was it? The Regular Guy. The one with Téa Leoni. That was a good one. That was about 22 years ago. But I don't see, and I've seen the pictures, and although he looks like him, Nicolas Cage is John Madden.
I want to see what that's gonna be like. That movie looks fantastic, and it's like, and I heard I forget who was going to play. Oh, is it Christian Bale playing Al Davis? I forget, but that whole Raider story is gonna be fun. That one looks really interesting.
The Raider story is Al Davis. I mean, this is when the NFL was the NFL. It was the cast of characters. You had John Matuzak was the Raider. Remember him, the lineman? Dave Casper, Fred Bolitnikoff. I mean, there was Kenny the Snake Stabler, all being led by John Madden. And who was the guy? Was it Jim Oliver? I believe his name was against the Minnesota Vikings with the famous pick six to end his career. It's like 1973. It's a great story. Guy's been in the league since like 1960, toiling away, championships, losing to the Green Bay Packers, and in the last game of his career, pick six against Fran Tarkenton, future Hall of Famer, returns it the whole length of the field. And it's a famous video in NFL films with the guy running towards the end zone, but the cameraman just locks on his face. Have you ever seen that?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. But when I think of the Raiders, I always think of the Holy Roller, where they had
that was Dave Casper and the Holy Roller. That was in the playoffs, I believe.
Right.
I mean, yeah. So
fantastic.
John Madden, quirky guy, won't fly, takes the bus, introduced the world to turducken, turkey and duck.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, the Raiders story, Al Davis with his granny pearls on his glasses, it's a fascinating story and worth a movie. And I just don't see Nicolas Cage, although in the pictures I've seen, he looks exactly like John Madden, and it looks like Nick Cage in a fat suit. I don't see him as John Madden. So jury's out, though, with you, huh?
Well, I want to say that there's probably some people behind the NFL, or at least the Raiders organization, that were probably behind making sure there's some authenticity to the role, because they're not going to just anybody play John Madden. But I like the idea of you put a big character, a star to get in that role. That's okay. I mean, let's see what they do with it. I'm absolutely going to go see it.
I can't think of anybody else off the top of my head who would be a John Madden type. But no, that's gonna be a great story. And it was that was the golden era of the NFL, was the 70s, with the Raiders and the Steelers, and people don't even, the Oilers were part of that, with Billy White Shoes Johnson and oh gosh, what's his name who won the Heisman
the
Trophy?
Reading Dolphins. Don't forget the perfect season Dolphins. Don't forget about the
ladies and gentlemen of the great city of Philadelphia, George Hermida, our guest, hails from South Florida, so hence I've neglected to mention the Miami Dolphins and the perfect season of 1972. And you're going to call me on that, right? Did I offend you, George?
No, but you know what? If I wanted to go in offend Philadelphia, I could then mention that, the Buccaneers towards the end of that decade, taking out the Eagles in the NFC Championship game in 79, and being able to do that and get their first chance in the playoffs to go far. But yeah, that's
all right,
that happened too.
When I talk about the golden era of the NFL, I was going to get you had the Steelers, but I was trying to think of Dan Pastorini. That's the name. He was the Oilers quarterback during that time. They could never get past the Raiders, and they could never get past the Steelers. And then, of course, the Dolphins were able to get through them, and they had their not only perfect season, but they won 2 in a row. So I think one was against the Vikings and one against, I think, the Washington Redskins. That was when Don Shula came over from Baltimore, and he had lost to the New York Jets in Super Bowl III. This is like the heyday of the NFL. And as you know, George, I just don't like what the NFL has morphed into. But, obviously they get 1 billion people watching the Super Bowl around the world. So they're doing something that it doesn't appeal to me, but it appeals to everybody else.
Well, the Eagles fans, I'm sure they do. Got some world champions over there, so they're okay.
Yeah, they're currently reigning champions. So that's, good for them. KingofPodcasts.com. I encourage you to check out. He's got so many podcasts going that I think he will, something there will appeal to you.